Well, good morning, everyone, and a very warm welcome indeed to you all to today's webinar, which is part of the SFJ Awards Insight series. My name is Candice Miller. I'm the Managing Director at SFJ Awards, and I'll be hosting this event today. The SFJ Awards Insights programme is designed to build really on our commitment to support the centres, the employers and the wider contacts that we work with by sharing news, information and best practice in relation to assessment, awarding and certification, and the products and services that we offer. Here at SFJ Awards, we are absolutely committed to quality in all that we do. And by quality, what I mean is the robustness, the accuracy, the validity, and the reliability of all the different assessment processes that are carried out, and which are so vital to the confidence we can all have in the meaning, the value, and the impact for learners and employers of the qualifications we issue. We're a leading awarding organisation for a wide range of qualifications tailored to the security sector. Our suite of security qualifications meets the needs of employers and training providers looking to improve the skills, knowledge and behaviours of operatives for the private and public security industry. We currently offer a number of qualifications in the security sector, including the Level 2 licence linked qualifications, which we launched in April 2022, and train the trainer qualifications, such as the Level 3 award for deliverers of physical intervention in the private security industry, Level 3 award for deliverers of physical intervention training for close protection operatives, and the Level 3 award in the delivery of conflict management training. During this presentation, we're going to be focusing on the launch of the revised Level 3 certificate for close protection operatives in the private security industry. With nearly 10 years industry experience as a regulated awarding organisation for hundreds of qualifications, SFJ Awards are pleased to announce that a new version of the Level 3 certificate for close protection operatives, CPO, in the private security industry qualification will be available from 1st April 2022. And today's webinar is all about that new close protection operative qualification. And it's intended to help centres who are familiar with the old version to smoothly transition from old to new. We'll be summarising the changes for you. We'll be providing a breakdown of the units and sharing information about what the implications are for training, assessment and internal quality assurance, all so that you can prepare your staff and your learners appropriately for success. So at today's webinar, you're going to be hearing from 3 people with deep insight into the qualification and the changes. Their names are up on screen now, and they are Deborah Hoggett, who's Product Development Officer here at SFJ Awards, Shell Clapham, who's Quality Manager at Security Industry Authority, and Karima Pedro, Development and Technical Manager, also at the Security Industry Authority. We'll be sending all live attendees of this webinar an SFJ Awards certificate of attendance for joining us here today. And if you also ordered one of our virtual event goodie bags, hopefully it's arrived safely at your front door by now. And if you didn't order one, there's always next time. Before we get going properly, I'm just going to run through a bit of housekeeping so you know how to participate properly in today's event. I'm quite sure we're all now very familiar with Zoom webinars and how they run, but just in case, a couple of quick points for you. At any time during the webinar, anytime, you have the opportunity to submit questions to today's presenters. To do so, just type your question into the Q&A feed using the button that's at the bottom of the control panel on your screen. You can also upvote questions that resonate with you the most. As time allows, the presenters will address as many questions as they can during the Q&A session at the end of the webinar. And any questions that we can't answer today, we'll take them away and we'll reply to them after the webinar. We do try to make our webinars two-way where we can. As usual in these webinars, attendees speakers will be muted. So the way to engage with us, other than through the Q&A, is for you to add any comments about our speakers and about what you're hearing from other attendees, perhaps in the chat function, which you can also access via the chat button on the control panel. And it might be good if you're willing to test that out by popping your name, your role and your current location into the chat so we all know who else is on the webinar. I'm lucky, I have 2 screens, so I've got mine out to the side here and you'll see me look across at the side quite often as I check up on the chat and as I check up on what's coming through within the any questions for later. At the end of this event, we'll be sharing all the slides and we'll be sharing a link to the website. And what we're also going to do during the course of the event is run a couple of short polls. So please, when you see those pop up on your screen, do be sure to interact with them as well. Because we want these insights events to be really meaningful and valuable for you, At the end of the event, as I said, we'll share the slides and you'll have a link to the website, but you'll also be able to watch the webinar again and share it with colleagues who aren't here today and who you think really would benefit from this, because we'll make it available on demand on the SFJ Awards website. So now, without any further ado, I'd like to hand over to Deborah, Shell and Karima. And I think Deborah is planning to open with one of those polls that I just mentioned. So I'll hand it over to you now, Deb.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, Candice. I hope everybody's well. So my name is Deborah Hoggett, and I'm one of the Product Development Officers at SFJ Awards. And I'm going to be talking you through the key changes to the Close Protection qualification today. So to start with, we'd like to get an understanding of how prepared you currently feel for the launch of the new Level 3 certificate for Close Protection operatives. So if you could please indicate through the poll, 1 being completely unprepared and 5 being extremely prepared, that would be fantastic. So we're just going to wait a little bit while the results come in. So I hope everybody's having a lovely day today. It's quite sunny where we are. Just wait a few more seconds. Okay, fantastic. So we've got a couple of 2s, quite a few 3s and a couple of 4s. Brilliant. So hopefully at the end of the session, you're going to feel a lot more prepared. Okay, so if we can just go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So what I'd like to do now is to hand over to Shell and Karima from the SIA, who will provide you with some background information regarding the development of the revised qualification.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, Debbie and Candice, for inviting myself and Shell to share with you this event on the revised close protection qualifications. Now, I'm just going to start off by talking about how we set the standard for these qualifications and basically saying why we've redeveloped them. So these license links qualifications, they are live for about 5 years. And so every 5 years, we have to review these qualifications. This involves reviewing the specifications upon which those quals are actually resting. So therefore, we also review the specification as well as the qualification itself. So 5 years came around a couple of years ago, and that's why we had to renew these qualifications. The close protection qualification took a slightly different route to the other specs and qualifications, but I'll discuss that as I go along further. So first of all, we started off with research. So what we wanted to do was just make sure we had a good base from which we were starting to look at the qualifications. We engaged the services of a particular research company, and they contacted license holders, and they contacted also businesses just to get their feel in terms of what they think is needed within the industry, within the sector generally. During the course of that, during the course of the review itself and that research, they contacted about a number of people, a number of license holders, and they contacted, as I said, again, a number of businesses, including ACS businesses and also employers, to find out what was really needed for those specifications for the qualifications. Moving on from that, we also engaged with industry stakeholders, and those include people that made up our expert working groups. And they made up about 10 industry experts that include businesses, individuals and companies from the approved contractor scheme, and also awarding organisation representatives. We also had experts from the CP sector to contribute to the development of these qualifications as well. So we didn't just go out there ourselves and just put what we felt was needed in those qualifications and in the specs. We actually engaged with industry across the board to try and make sure we had a broad range of views in terms of what needs to go in there. So after we'd also engaged with the industry stakeholders, we at that point developed the first draft of the specifications. Now, in terms of drafting that specification, we started with a blank sheet approach, which was to say we had no preconceptions. We wanted to go right back to the drawing board and say, what do we actually need in the specification, in the qualification, to ensure that it's going to be fit for purpose for the 21st century. After we developed these specifications, we then sent them out to a first consultation. We actually had 3 consultations in the case of close protection, but 2 consultations for the other qualifications and specs, but I'll explain that later as we go along. So when we developed these specifications, I said we sent out for consultation, and we had about 850 respondents back to those specifications. They were quite happy with most of those responses back, with the exception of CP. At which point we amended the specifications and sent out a second draft for consultation. The second consultation meant we had a lot more engagement with that. We sent out these specifications, and we also got about 4,000 plus responses back. Now you can see that's quite a large jump in terms of the responses we got back that second time around. So at that point, for the other qualifications, we just went ahead to develop the specification, develop qualification with the awarding organizations, but it was slightly different for the close protection sector. We held an additional close protection consultation because the previous 2 consultations, the satisfaction rates were not something that we were very happy with. So we wanted to make sure that we actually captured what the thoughts and feelings were regarding these specifications and qualifications. So after we held a third consultation, we received about 700 plus responses back, and that was specifically from the close protection sector mainly. We had about 97% of respondents coming back to us. And out of that, we had 74% stated that they're actually security operatives within the industry. And 86% of them said that they actually worked in the industry for more than 6 years. So in terms of those responses, we were satisfied that we've actually targeted a good audience in terms of the people we needed to speak to regarding the content of the specs and of the qualifications themselves. So after the third consultation, the results from that are actually much more encouraging than the first 2 for the close protection specifically. The satisfaction rates here were quite better, as I said. So we reviewed the specification, and we had the results back of about 68% of respondents being fully satisfied with the content. And that was really helpful to us because previously it was only 56%. So therefore that jump in more than 10% was really important to us to make sure it actually hit the nail on the head in terms of what the content should be. And 70% of respondents felt that there was nothing missing from the specifications. So again, we were quite happy with the content to feel that we'd covered everything that needed to be included within the new specifications and the qualification content. After that, we developed the specification, that is the close protection specification, and then got it signed off with our project board. After it was signed off with our project board and with the SIA board, we worked with the awarding organizations to develop the unit and indicative content, which a lot of you now have in access to develop your training materials. After that, qualifications are going to be implemented, and that's where we are at the moment now. So we're looking to implement the new qualifications in April 2022. We've also talked about top-up training. I'm going to talk about top-up training later on in this presentation, but it is noted here on the slide. Definitely top-up training does have to be included because we need to bridge the gap between the old and the new training. But as I said, we'll cover that later on in a later slide. And over to you, Shell.
Hi everybody, my name's Shell Clapham. I'm a quality manager at the SIA. So just moving on to the next slide, thank you. A big change that we've made to the close protection qualification is the addition of content to maintain the integration arrangement. So we currently have a license integration arrangement which allows close protection operatives to work as door supervisors and security guards. The key issue we had to address for this redevelopment is the fact that close protection operatives to date have not had to do some of the safety critical training that door supervisors are required to complete. So there has been for some time a particular risk around the fact that there is bespoke physical intervention skills training for door supervisors, and there are close protection operatives currently working as door supervisors without having completed this physical intervention element. So for this redevelopment, we had 2 options to either break the integration arrangement, therefore making the close protection operative license a pure close protection license, or to keep the integration arrangement. As my colleague Karima mentioned earlier, we held a number of public consultations for the redevelopment of the full suite of licensing qualifications that were launched in April 2021. And in January 2020, we held a consultation which was specifically focused on close protection and the license integration arrangement. We received feedback from approximately 700 close protection license holders. 89% of those were in favour of keeping the license integration arrangement. So it was evidently important to them to have that flexibility of being able to work in other licensable roles. Working closely with expert working groups and awarding organisations, we felt that the best way to address this issue was to keep the integration arrangement, but to add the safety critical aspects of the door supervision training content to the CP qualification. So we've added, as you can see from the slide, physical intervention skills content. So this consists of physical intervention skills for door supervisors, plus a brand new bespoke unit, physical intervention skills for close protection operatives. We've also added managing queues and crowds and licensing laws, and these are both taken from the door supervision content. And we've also added managing vulnerable people, which has been taken from the common unit content. So we've done a lot of work to mitigate the risks highlighted, but there will be some contention around the fact that some close protection license holders may want to work solely as close protection operatives. And the question is, will they still be required to do close protection top up on renewal? So the answer to that is yes. One, because we've introduced a new bespoke physical intervention skills specifically for close protection operatives. And two, because license integration remains, close protection operatives will still be required to complete the door supervision safety critical elements. We are also anticipating that there will be a small number of close protection operatives that will want to work solely as door supervisors. So in this case, on renewal, the close protection operative will be given the opportunity to take the DS top-up qualification as opposed to the CP top-up and switch to a DS license. To you, Karima.
Thanks, Shell. So our next slide here, we're talking about first aid. Now, as we all know, first aid certificate is a prerequisite for anyone doing the close protection qualification. There's been a lot of discussion about which first aid qualifications should be included within this group of prerequisite quals. Following representations from the industry, we have agreed and decided to keep the first aid at work qualification included. That's going to be the level 3 one for that. And also we're going to have the FPOS, that's the first person on the scene, and also the first responder emergency care qualification as well. So those 3 qualifications or equivalents to them will be accepted as prerequisites first aid qualifications for the close protection, for the new close protection qualification. This information is currently being updated on our website, so you'll be able to access it there shortly yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Shell. Thank you, Karima. So what we'd like to do now is run through some of the key changes to the qualification. So perfect. So this slide shows the current qualification structure versus the revised qualification structure. So as you can see, the revised qualification is quite a bit larger than the current version, with the inclusion of physical intervention skills training and content around door supervision responsibilities, as Shell mentioned, allowing for that license integration to enable individuals to work as both close protection operatives and door supervisors. So as it currently stands, the qualification at the moment that has 3 units with 140 guided learning hours, equating to 12 days of training and assessment. And the new qualification has a total of 7 units with 194 guided learning hours, equating to a minimum of 18 days of training and assessment. So the units highlighted in yellow, units 1, 2 and 6, are specific to close protection, and the other qualifications are also in the level 2 security qualifications, including the door supervisor qual. So as you can see, we've broken down the units to show the level, the total qualification time, the guided learning hours, and the SIA minimum contact time. So you will be required to provide evidence of learner attendance, and we do have a training register template which will be available on Odyssey for you to download over the next couple of weeks. Just want to touch quickly on Unit 4, so the principles of terror threat awareness. So this is the only unit which can be delivered through self-study, through learners completing the ACT awareness and ACT security e-learning packages developed by the SIA. So just a little background to the ACT e-learning packages. So to support the industry, the SIA have worked with the National Counter-Terrorism Security Office to develop bespoke e-learning modules for security. So basically, if the learner presents both certificates, so the ACT awareness and the ACT security, to the training provider, it will be recognised as them having had the required contact time for the terror threat awareness unit. So the knowledge of the terror threat awareness will be checked when they take the assessment. So if they complete the ACT awareness and the ACT security, the minimum contact time for that unit would be 20 minutes for that particular assessment. Okay, so the next few slides breaks down the learning outcomes for each unit. I understand it's a lot of information to take in, but please don't worry. As Candice mentioned at the start, the slides will be shared after the webinar. So Unit 1, Principles of Working as a Close Protection Operative, is broken down into 13 learning outcomes. So the unit focuses on assessing the learner's knowledge and is assessed by multiple choice examination, short answer questions completed in a learner workbook, and a practical assessment. So the assessor is required to provide comments and feedback in that learner workbook. Unit 2, Working as a Close Protection Operative, is broken down into 8 learning outcomes. So this unit focuses on competency and is assessed by practical assessment and short answer questions recorded in the workbook to underpin the knowledge required for aspects of the close protection operative role. Unit 3 is application of conflict management. Now this unit is one of the level 2 units imported from the other level 2 qualifications within the security suite, and is broken down into 4 learning outcomes, focusing on both competency and knowledge. It's assessed by multiple choice examination and practical assessment in form of a practical scenario, which is externally set and internally marked. Unit 4, Principles of Terror Threat Awareness, has 1 learning outcome, and as mentioned previously, is the only unit where self-study is allowed and is assessed by multiple choice examination. Unit 5, Principles of Working as a Door Supervisor for Close Protection Operatives, is broken down into 3 learning outcomes. So this unit is based on the Principles of Working as a Door Supervisor unit from the Door Supervisor qualification, and again focuses on knowledge with learners being assessed by multiple choice question examination. So Unit 6 is the application of physical intervention skills for close protection operatives, and it's broken down into 13 learning outcomes. So this unit is specific to close protection operatives and focuses on developing the learner's competency, but is also supported by developing the learner's knowledge around the physical intervention skills. So learning outcomes 1 and 7, which you can see on this slide, are knowledge-based. And then learning outcomes 8 to 13 are assessed through practical observation, again externally set and internally assessed, and a Q&A session to cover the critical areas of knowledge for assessment criteria 8.1, which is know how to apply physical intervention skills in a justifiable manner. So Unit 7, application of physical intervention skills in the private security unit. Again, this is a unit that's imported from the level 2 door supervision qualification and is broken down into 5 learning outcomes. Again, like with the physical intervention close protection unit, it focuses on developing the learner's competency, but is also supported by knowledge and is assessed through multiple choice question examination, practical assessment, externally set and internally assessed, and a Q&A session to cover the critical areas of PI knowledge. Okay, so as mentioned, each unit is assessed by multiple choice question examination, which is externally set and marked by us at SFJ Awards, with certain units also assessed by short answer questions and practical assessment and observation. So just in regards to the practical assessment, we do require these to be video recorded and retained by the centre for 3 years for quality assurance purposes. So this next slide just gives you a quick overview of how each unit will be assessed. So as you can see, for example, the first unit, Principles of Working as a Close Protection Operative, that's assessed through multiple choice examination, short answer questions recorded in a workbook, and the practical assessment. The workbooks and observation records will all be available to download through Odyssey, and we'll also be circulating the draft qualification handbook shortly, which will specify more details around each assessment of each unit, including the pass marks for the multiple choice question examinations. So virtual learning. So the SIA has agreed with awarding organisations that virtual learning and assessment can be used for a selection of the qualification content. So virtual learning, also sometimes referred to as remote delivery training or online classroom, is a platform which enables synchronous learning and interactive delivery of training. So this learning environment means that tutors and learners can communicate and interact with each other in an online group setting. So as you can see, there is specific content which can and can't be delivered virtually. So again, just using the first unit as an example, learning outcome 12 requires the learner to have an understanding of reconnaissance within a close protection environment. And then the assessment criteria 12.5 requires the learner to evidence that they can actually conduct reconnaissance activity. So this AC must be delivered face to face. Any training providers that want to use virtual learning and or even remote online invigilated exams must be approved to deliver and assess in this way. And this is done through applying via our quality assurance team. Okay, so what we'll do now is run through the centre requirements in order for you to deliver the new close protection qualification. So there are specific trainer and assessor requirements for the new close protection qualification. These include the trainer and assessor having the relevant trainer qualifications, which include the Level 3 award for deliverers of physical intervention training for close protection operatives, a Level 3 award for deliverers of physical intervention training in the private security industry. So both these qualifications are needed to deliver the physical intervention training units. And then the trainer is also required to have a current certificate, which is updated annually from an approved Level 3 program provider, which details that they're authorised to deliver the skills in those units. So it is the trainer and assessor's responsibility for submitting this to the training centre each year for us at SFJ Awards to check. They'll also need a qualification at or above Level 3 in the delivery of conflict management training, a Level 3 award in education and training or a recognised equivalent, 2 years frontline operational experience in the last 5 years. So this experience must be relevant to close protection, and we will judge this on individual merit. And there were trainers and assessors will also need to record a minimum of 40 hours CPD activity each year. So the CPD record must show that the ACT awareness training and the ACT for security training has been completed on an annual basis. Other suitable CPD activities also include attendance at relevant training events, conferences, seminars, continuing work experience in the sector, and also increase in professional knowledge through self-study or other means. So we do expect that in most cases, the trainer and assessor will be the same person. And also our QA team have been in touch with centres outlining these new requirements to help you with the transition to the new qualifications. So the assessor and internal quality assurer must also hold a relevant assessor or IQA qualification. For example, the assessor would need a level 3 award in understanding the principles and practices of assessment, or a level 3 award in assessing competence in the work environment. And the IQA would need a level 4 award in understanding the internal quality assurance of assessment processes and practices, or for example, a level 4 award in the internal quality assurance of assessment processes and practices. But a full breakdown of the qualification requirements for assessors and IQAs are provided in the SIA's Get Training document and will also be within the qualification handbook. So just to note as well that if assessors and IQAs don't hold any of the relevant qualifications or units, they will have until the 30th of September 2022 to achieve them. So we do advise that you check if your team require any of the assessor and IQA qualifications now, so that any necessary training can be planned. Okay, so just wanted to reiterate in terms of physical intervention training that all trainers delivering and assessing the application of physical intervention skills for the close protection operatives unit, they must have a suitable level 3 qualification in conflict management training, such as the level 3 deliverers of conflict management training, which we do offer SFJ awards. A level 3 award for deliverers of physical intervention training for close protection operatives, and a current certificate updated annually from an approved level 3 program provider that details that the trainer is authorised to deliver the skills in the approved level 2 physical intervention program. And again, for the application of physical intervention skills unit, they must have the level 3 qualification in conflict management, the level 3 award for deliverers of physical intervention training, and a current certificate updated annually from an approved level 3 program provider. At SFJ Awards, we do offer all those train the trainer qualifications. So if you do decide to outsource the physical intervention training to a subcontracted trainer or provider, you will need to ensure that you have the evidence that they can deliver the physical intervention training for both units. So please be mindful that you will be required to provide the relevant evidence for your trainers, assessors and IQAs prior to the delivery of the new qualification. So the SIA have actually put together a list of approved organisations offering the physical intervention skills Train the Trainer programme, and we will be circulating these links after the webinar, and any questions you do have around trainer requirements or quality assurance team are available to answer those. Okay, so in terms of centre reapproval, our quality assurance team have circulated a form for you to complete in order for you to deliver the new CPO qualification. So in terms of the form, we're asking you to provide evidence of the trainer, assessor, IQA requirements. If you do have different assessors for different units, please highlight this on the centre reapproval form. We are also asking for evidence of centre insurance for physical intervention training, and also a floor plan including room dimensions and a photograph of physical intervention training rooms. Again, all these requirements are within the SIA's Get Training document and will be within the qualification handbook, and we'll circulate the links after the webinar. But just to note, actually, in terms of DCS won't actually be carried forward to the new qualifications. As you can see, there are different requirements between the old qualification and the new. Okay, finally, we just wanted to highlight top-up training. So what I'd like to do now is hand over to Shell and Karima again to provide a brief overview of the requirements. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Thanks for that update. That was really helpful. Yeah, so just covering top-up training. So as we've discussed before, top-up training is training that's going to bridge the gap between the old and the new learning for the qualification for the license. In determining what the content should be, what we've done is taken a risk-based approach to determine what should be in there, taking into consideration also public safety and the cost and the time to the license holders actually to get this training as well. So we've taken a number of things into account to develop this, the top-up training. And first off, just to clarify for you that first aid, a valid first aid certificate will be a requirement for as a prerequisite for the top-up training. So that's something that's been included here. We've also included for other qualifications, such as for the door supervisor and the security guarding qualification. So it's not, therefore we're still carrying this forward also to the close protection qualification. Top training is also going to include the physical intervention skills for close protection. So that's very new to this qualification. It's also going to include the door supervisor critical content, which is things like licensing laws, vulnerability training, etc., which is included in new qualification. We're also going to cover physical intervention skills for door supervision as well. Again, that's a very new element to the qualification, and terror threat awareness. All those elements together make up the top-up qualification. Bearing in mind that first aid is a prerequisite, which needs to be achieved before you register to apply to take the new training itself. Top training is going to be available from July 2022. And we're going to make it a requirement, that is to say, you need to make sure you have this on license renewal from October 2022. We also aim to give license holders who actually work, who have a CP qualification and a license, CP license, who mainly work as door supervisors, to actually renew to a door supervisor license, providing they take the DS top-up, as Charles mentioned earlier. Yet we're in the process now working and putting together the actual content for the top-up training with awarding organizations, and we hope to make this available to you shortly. I think we can move on to the next slide. Great.
Just going to bring myself back in now, just to say to everybody, thank you so much to Karim, Michelle and Deborah for that absolutely fantastic level of detail there for everybody. You know, I think, I know it's a lot to take in. And as we've said a couple of times, as Deborah's mentioned as well, all the slides are going to be available after the event and also a recording. So you will be able to catch up on all of this subsequently. So I mentioned this in the chat function. So if earlier, if you were able to access it and use it, you will have seen me say, don't forget, you can post questions. As just a final reminder to do that. Have got a few questions coming through. So I'm going to start off with one here that looks to be quite specific about the top-up training. And somebody's saying, will I be required to complete top-up training if I've no intention of ever working as a door supervisor? I don't know if Karima or Shell wants to pick up on that one.
I can pick up on that one. As I mentioned in my slide earlier, because we've included the new bespoke physical intervention for close protection, so there's a whole new unit there. The fact that we've added these safety critical components from the door supervision course, so the licensing laws, vulnerable people, queues and crowds, it means that yes, if you do work as a close protection operative and you just want to work as a close protection operative, you still have, due to license integration, the ability to work as a door supervisor and security guard, so you will be required to take the top-up.
Okay, that's great. Thanks. That really answers that well. So here's another one coming through. If delivery of a close protection course is scheduled from 2303 to 0804, can we still deliver the current qualification? Karima or Shell?
Yeah, that's fine.
Karima, thank you.
So when did you say, from 2303?
2303 to 0804. In other words, it's spanning the launch date for the new one. So somebody's here saying, can we still deliver the current qualification in that time zone?
Yeah, so
go ahead.
Sorry, in terms of the current qualification, the operational end date for it is the 31st of March 2022. So if learners are registered on that qualification before then, that they can complete the qualification. But any registrations after that, so from the 1st of April, will be on the new qualification. So I believe in terms of the last resit date for the current qualification, that is the 31st of July. And then the certification end date for the current qualification is the end of August.
Gee, thanks for that. Hopefully that was helpful then. So I've got a couple more questions here. Does the 1 day first aid at work cover close protection? Is that one of the ones that's allowed?
No, it's
No.
not. It's not.
No.
You have to do the first aid at work, the 3-day one.
You have to do the 3-day. Thanks, that's helpful clarification. Will there be a train the trainer course covering both aspects of PI training?
I think in terms of that, so there are train the trainer courses that will cover them individually. I think if someone wants to, I'm just trying to think of the best way to explain this. So if you want to do the full qualification, you would need to go to a provider who would actually offer both the DS and the CP aspects of it. But I'm not sure how the providers are going to do in terms of offering that. So you'd need to actually query with them and see what they're going to be doing in terms of delivery.
So thanks for that, Grima. So check with the provider that you're thinking of using exactly
Yes.
how they plan to deliver that. Okay, that's helpful. Another one here then is, has the PI for CPO, that's an acronym soup a little bit today, isn't it? Has the PI for CPO been taken directly from the DS store supervisor content? And if so, how is it justified, relevant and appropriate to close protection operatives? I'm guessing that's probably comes back to the research and the work that you did there in terms of your thinking about that. Do you want to say anything more about that?
Well, I can say, well, it's not taken directly from the door because they are two intervention skills that are completely different. So one is, protecting the individual. The other one is protecting the principal and removing them to a point of safety. And I can say that we've worked quite closely with expert working groups, specifically focused on physical intervention for close protection. So it's a completely different skill set.
So the short answer is no, and we know it's relevant, we know it's justified, we know it's appropriate because it's been dealt with specifically, thinking about
and works closely with experts in
absolutely.
Protection, yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the things that came through for me. And one of the messages I hope everybody takes away from this is not just about this specific qualification, but about the level of work and detail and consultation that goes in to getting qualifications right, so that we know that they've got real meaning and value for the people who take them and also for those who deliver them. So I've got another one here, which is something I think you mentioned, Karim, much earlier on in the presentation, and it's somebody saying, what's the difference between license integration and license switching? You mentioned something about.
You don't want to go for that, Shell?
Okay. So license integration is, in some cases, if you hold an SIA license for one licensable activity, you'll be able to perform activities covered by other licenses. Right. So that's license integration. And license switching is where license holders are given the opportunity to switch licenses depending on the top-up requirement for that license.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. So a question, maybe Deborah, I don't know if it's you perhaps, but will there be any, I'm going to read it because it's quite lengthy, will there be any accreditation for prior learning for current physical intervention level 3, close protection, or any fast track training for existing trainers? If they've already achieved a level 3, is there anything that will, like an RPL, any aspects of that across?
Yeah, so trainers, for example, who have achieved the level 3 award for physical intervention training in the private security industry, they can RPL the level 3 teaching unit across to the deliverers of physical intervention training for close protection operatives, because that is a common unit. So then they just do the standalone close protection physical intervention unit.
Okay, thank you very much. Got another one here. So look, we've heard from the presentation that learners can produce the ACT and the ACT security certificates to RPL learning for the terror threat unit, but how old can they be? Somebody's saying here, I did ACT 3 years ago. Is that still valid? Would it be valid 3 years on? Deborah?
I think
Or
my
Karima?
understanding was in terms of that the certificate can't be more than 12 months old.
Yeah, that's
right?
correct.
So Karima says yes,
So
and Shell's nodding. So I think we're all in agreement.
Yeah.
No, you can't do that. It has to be within 12 months old. I mean, there is such an important thing about currency, obviously, making sure that everybody's really current in their competence and their understanding and expertise. So that really comes into that. So I've got a couple of further questions, and somebody's saying here it's fine if they happen up after the event. Is there a set order for course content, assuming conflict management before physical intervention, for example? Is there a set order, or can people take the various units in different?
Yeah, so we would require learners to do the conflict management unit before the physical intervention units, and that's the case for the current door supervisor qualification.
So that persists. So if there are rules like that, they're still in play.
Yeah, all that. Sorry, Candice.
Well, I was going to say, will that be in the handbook? Will that be?
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. Everything, all the information in terms of the units, the order, the assessments, etc. Everything will be in the handbook.
Excellent, thank you for that. And then another one, is the contact time for each unit open to interpretation, so long as the unit guided learning hours are met and the scheme of work covers that? So it's the contact time, it's got to be actual contact time. Is it any interpretation around that, so long as the unit's guided learning hours are met? Any thoughts on that one?
So I think because the SIA have stipulated minimum contact time for each of the units. So that obviously that's the minimum amount of time that you have to have put with that learner. So as long as they meet that, if it goes over, it shouldn't be an issue. But again, we do provide the training registers as well for centres, because we do have to check whether that minimum contact time has been met.
Okay, thank you. And just in terms of that, is there, somebody else saying, is there a minimum maximum time each day over the duration of the learning provision?
So I believe it's 11 hours each day, isn't it, in terms of learning, Shell and Karima?
Yeah, I'm trying to think, trying to picture the table in my head.
Yeah,
so, yes.
yeah, I think it is 11 days per day.
11 hours a day.
11 hours per, sorry, getting confused with days and hours. Yeah, so yeah, 11 hours per day.
Thank you. And I'm being asked, will the workbook replace a Q&A written examination? Because there's a multiple choice questions for some of the units, isn't there, in addition? And then there's the workbook to use for the short answer. Does that replace a written examination?
Yes, so in terms of the assessments, it's either a multiple choice question examination, short answer questions completed in the workbook, that's for units 1 and 2, and then there's the practical assessments.
Thank you very much. Can learners be asked to complete the ACT prior to attendance? So it's not a prerequisite that they do it, but can we ask them? It's one provider asking if we can we do that?
I think that's almost the same as saying that if I've already got the training, can I then turn up with my certificate to say I've done it? Yes, you can, but you need, obviously we would assume you've taken those required 2 hours to do that training. That will be taken as written. So yes, you can do that, so long as there's evidence to say that you've achieved it, and you've been certificated for it, and it's a valid one. Then that should be okay.
Thank you. And it's within that 12-month time zone as well. Yeah. Sorry, Shell.
They will be required to do the assessment slide.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
So that's
You'll
important.
have to do that. Okay, great. Thank you. Does RPL apply to CM from DS to CP?
Yeah, it's full of acronyms. Yeah, so if a learner has achieved, for example, the level 2 doors qualification from 2021, there's the conflict management unit within that. So you would be able to RPL that to the CP qualification.
Great. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, just looking to see, I don't think I've, oh, wait a minute, here we go. When will the list of approved deliverers of physical intervention training for close protection operatives, approved providers list be published? Do we know?
They should be going on our website imminently. I think what I will do is I'll talk to my colleagues internally to see whether I can actually provide that list to the awarding organisations for them to make available to their centres as another option, I think, just to speed the process along.
Oh, that would be really great. Thank you for that, Karima. That would be really helpful. So it's coming soon, people. So you won't wait for too long. Do we have an RITS qualification number for CPO yet? I think, is that you, Deborah?
Yeah, not as of not yet. The qualification number will be available shortly once we've regulated it with Ofqual.
Okay, thank you very much. And so I think this is a clarification. Somebody's asking about if I'm a trainer, do I need to do additional training to deliver the new close protection qualification? And my sense is from everything you've said, yes, but do you want to just say a little bit more about that, perhaps?
Yes, you do as a trainer. You would, oh, sorry, Debbie, you were about to
Yeah,
talk.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
All right. So you would need to do additional training. I mean, as a given, we expect a trainer would have the training or teaching qualification anyway. We'd also expect they would have the conflict management training as well anyway, because they've been delivering the qualification previously, and that's already down there as our requirements. In terms of doing now the CP elements, which are the new things, if you've not offered the close protection, if you've not offered door supervision physical intervention skills, you would need to actually achieve a level 3 award for deliverers of physical intervention skills training, which ordinarily and sometimes covers the level 2 element as well. That's for DS. And then you'd need to achieve the certificate from an approved program provider for the close protection physical intervention skills training, which will confirm your ability to do that. So it depends where you are in the process. If you've already got training with door supervision and physical intervention skills, you've already covered it halfway. All you'd need to do then is just get the CPPI element bit to it. If you haven't done anything at all, then you have to get the level 3 bits as well as the level 2 parts as well. And that includes the certificate to say you can actually do the training for the skills, which as well needs to be refreshed and updated on a regular basis every year.
Yeah, exactly. And we need to know that, don't we, Debs, in terms of the making sure that all for centres, please make sure that you do have all that information for all of your trainers. And so we're able to recognise that as has been made quite clear. It's quite important that the individuals who are delivering training, and often they are the assessors, are themselves fully up to speed and fresh in their skills and their learning. So I think we've sort of had this a little bit before, but it's again, so I'm just looking for a little bit of clarification, and maybe it's for you, Deb. Is RPL permitted for the unit principles of working as a door supervisor for close protection operatives if the learner has already achieved the level 2 door supervisor qualification? So can they RPL that unit across?
Okay, so if the learners have achieved the principles of working in the private security industry and the principles of working as a door supervisor in the private security industry units from the level 2 doors qualification, RPL can be used, but the learners must sit and pass the multiple choice examination for the principles of working as a door supervisor for close protection operatives. So it's the learning that can be RPL, but the assessment has to be sat.
Okay, thank you. That's really helpful. So look, I haven't got any more questions coming up on the screen, folks. So I'm hoping we've asked and answered the questions that our audience has got as burning questions for the moment. There is, of course, as I've said it a couple of times now, all of the material, all of the slides will be available after the show. So there's a lot more information in that. So if you do have further questions, do get back in touch. I just want to finish up by saying thank you so much to Deborah, Karima and Shell for really in-depth conversation today. A really, really fantastic presentation, taking people through lots of detail. There is a lot to get your heads around, but actually the qualification handbook and the various websites and locations that you can get lots more information are available to you. So hopefully you make a smooth transition and we get into those new qualifications very soon. So you've got on screen now just the last little slide, which is to say that we hope we'll see you next time. These Insight series cover a lot of different topics, sometimes very specific, as this one is, sometimes much more general. But do get in touch with us if there's things you'd like us to carry on providing, any particular topics you want us to share, please do so. You can see on the screen the different ways you can reach out to us. And we look forward to seeing you next time round. And once again, many thanks, Kareem, Michelle and Deborah. Thank you very much. And thank you all for joining in. Cheers for now. Bye.
Thank you.